Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're looking at the normal cards which are within the Duel Links main box 30, Shining Hope. The first card we have is Satilla Knight Alsham. It's a light warrior level 4 with 1400 attack and 1800 defense. The effect is if this card is summoned, you can inflict 1000 damage to your opponent, and you can only use this effect of Satilla Knight Alsham once per turn. This is quite different to how the Satilla Knights want to work, and of them I wouldn't really run this card unless maybe one of. Remember, you're only getting 500 because of the new Duel Links system, which agrees to only, half the amount of burn damage. So it's not a case of if you had 3 of these and managed to get them all, that you can actually bring your opponent almost down, to no life points just by summoning them. Satilla Knight Sirius is a light attribute warrior type level 4 with 1600 attack and 900 defense. And the effect is if this card is summoned, you can target 5 Satilla Knight monsters in your graveyard, you shuffle all 5 into the deck, then you draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Satilla Knight Sirius once per turn. This card acts a bit like Pot of Avarice, but you only get the trade-off as drawing 1 card rather than the 2. That's okay, because if you've gone through your resources that includes the Xyz monsters, and you didn't have time to put, or the ability to put any more in your extra deck, that can be able to recover those cards. The draw is nice, but actually being able to recover them back into the deck means you can always pull them out to use them again, especially if you're low on resources at the time. It also prevents you from kind of decking out. Satilla Knight Procyon is a light warrior level 4 with 1300 attack and 1200 defense. If this card is summoned, you can send 1 Tellarknight monster from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Satilla Knight Procyon once per turn. This effect is quite good actually because Altair is able to, when it's summoned, special summon something from the graveyard, so you can actually set up things without relying too heavily on your opponent. I would consider running about 2 of these, not to overextend yourself, but to give yourself the flexibility to kind of draw into this card to go into your combos easier. Satilla Knight Betelgeuse is a light warrior level 4 with 700 attack and 1900 defense. The effect is if this card is summoned, you can target 1 Tellarknight card in your graveyard, except itself, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, add that target to your hand. You can only use this effect of Satilla Knight Betelgeuse once per turn. This card just trades itself for another card. So actually, if you've got a Tellarknight that you prefer, this is a 1900 defense monster. Sometimes that's better, especially if it's longer in the duel and you've kind of just drawn into this. It's a way of kind of setting yourself up. Satilla Knight Regen is a light warrior level 4 with 1900 attack and 700 defense. Its effect is if this card is summoned, you can target 1 Tellarknight monster on the field. It gains 500 attack, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase. You can only use this effect of Satilla Knight Regen once per turn. This card is useful if you're in the position where you think you're actually just going to go for game. The boost will send your Deltaros into 3000 attack, or one of your other monsters up a little bit more, enough to be able to get over some of your opponent's bigger threats. But you do run the risk of, if your opponent stops you at any point, kind of defeating yourself, really. Gaga Caesar is a Earth Warrior level 3 with 1800 attack and 600 defense. It cannot attack unless you control another face-up Gaga monster. Once per turn, you can banish 1 monster from your graveyard that has a level. The levels of all face-up Gaga monsters you control become the level of that monster. And it says this card cannot be used as a synchro material monster. That's not really an issue. It's of the Xyz generation, not the synchro generation, so that's fine. Being able to manipulate levels means you can go into one of a many number of ranks. I think you've got ranks for 2, 3, 4. I think there might be one for 5 and 6, or you might be actually missing the 5 at the moment. And there'll be other ranks as we go along. So actually this helps to provide the only trouble is that it is based on the Gaga monsters that that you banish. That's the downside. So until you get those, you still are a little bit restricted. Dojo Warrior is a Earth Warrior level 6 with 2,300 attack and 1,900 defense. You can normal summon this card without tributing, but its original attack becomes 1,800. If this card attacks, you can negate all card effects that activate in the opponent's graveyard until the end of the damage step. This card's really effective against things like Bacon Saver, Kite Roid. Any of these nuisance cards which activate in your opponent's graveyard is always a good thing. The attack trade-off isn't big enough to be that much of an issue. So if you want to tribute it to be its level 6 form, or summon it in the level 6 where it's only 1,800 attack, doesn't make a difference. Equip it with the power of the Guardian, it gains those 500 attack points either way. It's here more for that secondary part of the effect, which is actually makes it very flexible to respond to your opponent. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, we have another Dustin. This is Yellow Dustin, an Earth attribute Fiend type, level 1. Again, same stats, 0 attacks, 1,000 defense. Cannot be used as a fusion, synchro, or exceeds material for a summon. While this card is face up on the field, it cannot be tributed. When this card on the field is destroyed, the controller targets one monster in their graveyard. You shuffle that target into the deck, and you can only control one face-up Yellow Dustin. Again, there isn't really much to say about it. It's not useful at the moment until you get the boss monster out. And now we have Red Dustin. It's a fire attribute Fiend level 1 with 0 attack and 1,000 defense. It cannot be used as a fusion, synchro, or exceeds material for a summon. While this card is face up on the field, it cannot be tributed. When this card on the field is destroyed, the controller takes 500 damage. You can only control one face up Red Dustin. Really, you don't want to be taking, points of damage for no reason. This card is just awful, along with the rest of its cousins. Blue Dustin is a water attribute Fiend. It's a level 1 with 0 attack and 1,000 defense. It cannot be used as a fusion, synchro, or exceeds material for a summon. While this card is face up on the field, it cannot be tributed. When this card on the field is destroyed, banish one random card from the controller's hand face down until the next turn's standby phase. You can only control one face-up Blue Dustin. Out of all the cards I've read with Dustin in their name, this is probably the worst of them. Banishing a card, it has to be a random card from your hand, means you could essentially be getting rid of one of your best cards, and you have to wait until your next standby phase. If it's something that can activate from your hand, Kite Roid, the Spear Karibo, anything like that has a use whilst in the hand is just going to be wasted through this effect. The next card we have is Ganbara Knight. It's a light attribute warrior level 4 with 0 attack and 1,800 defense. Its effect is when this face-up attack position card is targeted for an attack, you can change it to defense position. That's actually quite useful if, say, for example, you want to just confuse your opponent. Of course, they can just read the card, but, most players these days don't. So if they attack, you just change this to defense, or potentially, if you just want to try and force your opponent to try and think, and you've got something in the back row just so that they have something in attack mode, you can kind of predict what they're going to do. That's a way of kind of baiting them out as well. The next card is Ganbara Lanza. It's a light attribute warrior type level 5 with 1,000 attack and 2,000 defense. The effect is when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one Ganbara Lanza from your hand or graveyard in face-up defense position. This is meant to be for your rank 5 Xyz plays. I don't know how many we have at the moment, but I don't think we've got anything useful. One of the key cards out there, you've got Freezerdon and you've got Volcasaurus. Those cards are really good for this type of thing, but until you get those, at the moment, I would say it's a waste of a card. You know, the stat line up on a level 5 is not great. Flelf is a monster. It's a wind attribute spellcaster level 2 with 800 attack and 1300 defense. Once per turn, you can reveal one monster in your hand, and you can increase the level of this card by the level of that monster until the end phase. This is another one of those level manipulation cards. You've got quite a few of them within Zeal itself, and it helps to basically adjust the levels to the point where you can go into a ranked monster. You could do that, or you could actually use it as well with synchro summons, so that's always the other way you can do it. It's not got any kind of restriction attached to it. It's a bit more balanced for what you want and a bit more flexible. I could see it more in synchro strategies more than, say, for Xyz ones, but, you know, that's just my opinion on it. Damage Mage is a dark attribute spellcaster level 3 with 600 attack and 1200 defense. Its effect is when you take damage from a card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, gain life points equal to the amount of damage you took. This card is really not that useful. Yes, you can special summon it in response to taking damage, and potentially that can actually protect your life points for a turn if your opponent's, you know, trying to go in all in. But there are better ways of doing this. The other thing as well is you have to take the damage before you get the recovery. So if you take a big amount of damage, you could end up losing before you can actually trigger off this effect. Grand Ram is an Earth attribute rock type level 4 with 0 attack and 1400 defense. If your opponent controls a face-up Xyz monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in face-up attack position. Unless you're facing mirror matches at the moment or facing players that are using Xyz monsters, this is very specific. Yes, it does let you special summon itself, and I know the intention is to just go into a rank 4 Xyz monster, but it does rely on your opponent to have something that they might not be running in the first place. It could be a very, very dead card for all you know. It's not worth the risk. There are much better options out there. Even if we don't get Kage to Kage that quickly, there are monsters out there that can do a better job. The next card is Bachi Bachi Bachi. This is a light attribute insect level 3 with 800 attack and 800 defense. An Xyz monster that was summoned using this card on the field as Xyz material gains this effect. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. That's quite a decent effect. I mean, you know, and the issue is this is for rank 3s, so that, you know, had this been for rank 4s and it been a level 4, that might have been better. I'm not complaining about it. I think this was used in when they started seeing the evidence of the Barren Emperors coming back, when some of these humans started getting the powers of the Barren world and started getting access to some of these dark Xyz monsters. That's when Yuma had to face this mechanical engineer monster, and he actually used this card as part of that strategy. Lightbug is an Earth attribute insect type level 3 with 300 attack and 1000 defense. If your opponent controls a face-up Xyz monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. When you do, target one monster your opponent controls. That monster loses 300 attack. So this is doing very minimal amounts of attack reduction. It's not enough to be justified to run it unless you're trying to use it and you know your opponent is using Xyz monsters. But generally, there are so many better cards to do the same kind of thing, if not much stronger. The next card is Toy Knight. This is an Earth attribute machine type, level 4 with 200 attack and 1200 defense. It cannot be special summoned from the deck, and if your opponent controls more monsters than you, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one Toy Knight from your hand. This was used by Astral in the anime. It was against, I think that was number 96. When when he was kind of being used within a duel. This was to face that Xyz monster. The whole idea is that with Dark Mist, every time it gets attacked, it gains half the attack. Well, it gains half the attack of your opponent's monster, and it halves their monster. Astral's idea was if he could use that several times over to rid Dark Mist of its overlay units, it could no longer gain any more power and it would be a bit of a weakling. This wasn't actually that effective because Dark Mist knew this was what Astral would be doing on the second encounter when he faced him. And he used I think it was a trap card which prevented his monsters from attacking unless they had over 1,000 attack. So he could guarantee that Dark Mist would overall get more points. It's not really an effective card. It could be used for Xyz players as well, saying that though. And, it just requires your opponent to have more monsters than you do. If you have nothing and it's the second turn, your opponent has gone first, you can guarantee to use this effect. Trouble is, this only special summons from the hand, so unless you have another one, it's a bit of a waste, and also there is a risk of your hand just clogging up too much with these at different points. The next card is White Dustin. This is a light attribute fiend type level 1 with 0 attack and 1000 defense. I love the flavor text on this. It says the proudest of them all. I suppose it has to be since the other ones have such negative effects. Actually, the fact that this is a normal monster makes it probably the best of the bunch. Monstertle is a water attribute aqua level 3 with 800 attack and 1000 defense. It's just a pack filler. It's not really there for anything other than just, to fill the pack. It's protected by a spiked shell. This turtle has a very nasty disposition that can be trampled by absolutely anything. So for this one, I couldn't actually find any real images or pictures of it. I think this is the nearest thing I could find on it. Yoronzo, it's a dark attribute level 4 zombie type with 1300 attack and 1500 defense. Its only claim to fame, I think, is it was used by Duke Devlin within the, I think it was in the Battle City. Well, no, it was just before Battle City, just after they had, defeated Pegasus and had come back to New Domino City. He was in the Dungeon Dice Monsters game and used by Duke in that. So the next card is Gaga Wind. This is a normal spell card with the effect special summon one Gaga monster from your hand as a level 4 monster. The purpose of this is that means you guarantee yourself a Utopia from it. There's not much more to say about that, really. The next card is Gaga Tag. It's a normal spell card with the effect all Gaga monsters you currently control gains 500 attack for each Gaga monster you currently control until your next standby phase. You can only activate one Gaga Tag per turn. Essentially, if you have 3 of them out, you can actually make your monsters 1500 attack stronger. That's great for the Magician because that actually turns it into a 3000 attack monster. The other ones are a bit too weak. Unfortunately, the other one that's in the picture, which is like the Apprentice version, isn't available yet in Duel Links. It's a 1000 attack monster. It would become 2500 with that kind of effect, but we'll wait and see when those get released. Xyz Reception is a normal spell card with the effect target one face-up monster you control that has a level, special summon one monster with the same level as that monster from your hand. Its effects are negated and it has its attack and defense become 0. doesn't make a difference. You're just going to be using it for the summoning of an Xyz monster. The next card is Overlay Regen. So this is a normal spell card with the effect target one face-up Xyz monster on the field. Attach this card to it as an Xyz material. What's interesting about this is actually there are certain monsters that have negative effects, or ones that, you know, are very destructive to themselves, which means that, you know, you will want to replace the materials if you can. This is an instant card, but the problem with it is, of course, you know, you draw into this, you don't have any Xyz monsters, it becomes a dead card. The three cards in question that you can see in the picture, all one of them, it has a negative effect caused by it, the other two don't. So you've got Digusto Emerald. He's not a big problem. He was used to kind of recover resources. Lavarval Chain, which is the one at, you know, at the right with the fiery kind of look to him, kind of to just send cards from your deck to the graveyard. It's the one in the middle that is the problem. That's number 30 Acid Golem. It was used in the anime, and it was used very cruelly by Kite. I think it was like episode 20, somewhere along that. Shark is aware of the Xyz monsters and the number monsters, and knew he needed to have a strategy to try and steal Kite's numbers. So he planned on using, I think it was a trap card called Splash Capture, which was to get rid of 2 of his fish monsters and just steal that other number from Kite. Kite knew this was probably going to be the case, and actually just had summoned number 30 Acid Golem of Destruction. Its effect means that you actually every turn have to detach a material. If you don't, 2 things happen. First, if it doesn't have a material, it cannot attack. For a 3000 attack monster, that, you know, that's really frustrating to not be able to use it, even if it's just a massive beat stick. You know, it does something. The other thing is you take 2000 points of damage every turn. So yeah, that's kind of why this card is highlighted of the 3, you know, in the background of it. So we've got Level Lifter. This is a normal spell card with the effect send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target up to 2 face-up monsters you control. Until the end of this turn, their levels become the original level of the monster sent to the graveyard to activate this card. When I first saw this card, when it first came to the game, I thought this was incredibly broken when Zeal just started, because you could essentially make anything you wanted. At that time, I don't think there were many, if any at all, monsters where they needed 3 or so, you know, to go into the Xyz monster. But now is the case where this has become even worse. I suppose at the moment, with dual links only requiring, you know, having Xyz monsters that need two Xyz materials for them, it's not that bad. And actually, it's more flexible. You can go into a variety of cards with this. It is a bit of a cost because you're using this card and you're actually using the discard as well. And depending on what you're discarding, you could be discarding something that could end up being more useful, or you could end up Xyz something into something and your opponent does something like Void Trap Hole, in which case you've lost 5 cards. You've lost the spell card, you've lost the monster you've got in your hand, you've lost the 2 monsters you've used to Xyz summon, and you've also lost the Xyz monster itself. So it's a big burden to get wrong. Xyz Soul is a normal trap card with the effect target 1 Xyz monster in either player's graveyard. All monsters you currently control gain attack equal to its rank times 200, then you can shuffle it into the extra deck. This card increases lasts until the end phase. This can be quite useful if you've got one of your rank, even if you just got a Utopia in your graveyard, that's 800 more attack points, depending on what you have on your field, and your opponent thinks, oh, I can instantly run over these. You could potentially stop them for the rest of their turn. You could have also stopped them from doing, from keeping one of their more valuable cards if they want to try and ram you in immediately and try and end the duel. Numbers Overlay Boost is a normal trap card with the effect target one number exceeds monster you control that has no exceeds materials. Attach 2 monsters from your hand to that face-up exceeds monster as exceeds materials. At the moment, the cards that are available aren't that effective. I think the best one to use is with, well, you don't. The problem is it has to be numbers. So you've got number 39 and you've got number 25. That was Force Focus. I can't think of any other numbers you've got in the game. So you've either got the ability to negate an attack or the ability to negate an effect of a level 5 or higher monster. Of the two, Utopia is better, in my opinion, for the time being. But I just generally wouldn't run this card. It's requiring 2 cards from your hand. It's not from your graveyard. It's not from your deck. And if anything goes wrong or your opponent actually manages to get rid of that Utopia, you've lost 3 cards, all just to, repower Utopia. Bujin Regalia the Duel is a normal trap card with the effect target 1 rank 4 exceeds monster you control. Equip this card to that target. It gains 300 attack for each exceeds material attached to it. Once per turn, while this card is equipped to a monster by this effect, you can attach 1 Bujin monster from your hand to the equipped monster as an exceeds material. So assuming you start off with, I think each of the Bujin exceeds monsters starts off with a 2 exceeds material. Assuming you haven't used any of them at all, that's a 600 point boost. For Susanoo, that would make it a 3000 attack monster. For the other one, that makes it 2400. And each turn you can add a Bujin as a material, which means it supports their effects, and it also means that it's giving it another 300 attack points each turn. My only issue with that is putting all your eggs in one basket. If that, Susanoo or the other one was to be destroyed, you've lost quite a lot just to boost that up. So you better have some kind of protection running alongside it. Utopian Aura is a normal trap card with the effect to detach 1 exceeds material from a monster you control. The face-up exceeds monsters you currently control cannot be destroyed by card effects until the end phase. This is good in some respects because if your opponent is running certain things, then yes, that will help. And it can be used, since it's a trap card, in response to your opponent. My concerns are things like Drowning Mirror Force, you've got Karma Cut, you have various other cards. There's that one that can reduce your monsters' attack points by 800 times the number of monsters you have on your field. If you've got 3 on your field, that's 2,400. So even the Utopia you see there, that would become a 100 attack monster. There are easy ways of outing this card, which means it's not viable even to these standards. So the next card is Reinforced Space. This is a normal trap card with the effect each face-up exceeds monster you control gains 300 attack for each exceeds material attached to it until the end phase. This isn't really that good. It's only potentially another 600 attack point boost. There are much better cards. I've mentioned before Exceeds Unit and a couple of other cards as well. That Overlay Unit. This is just a bit of a wasted card and is already outclassed, or so far. And this is just the first kind of release of Exceeds cards within packs. And the final one of the normal cards is called the Gift of Greed. It's a normal trap card, and your opponent draws 2 cards. I do not know which situation where you want to give your opponent 2 cards, unless, of course, you're using something like Bubble Crash, which is able to kind of plays off that, or some other card which actually helps when it's manipulated in a way like that. Other than that, it's really not useful and a bit of a waste of space, really. So which of the cards did you like in this list and which didn't you like? For me, personally, my favourite would probably be something like the Exceeds Soul, and that's really, and the Flouth. Everything else I don't see as that great. Even Bujin Regalia, the Duel, I think that's okay. Everything else is kind of a bit of a waste. Whatever you think, leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe. Any support is much